Welcome back on Mode. Today I want to propose you a video about the review about the rules for the Battletome of the Seraphon 2023. I want to remind you that this is the technically preview Battletome version, so the one that has been released with the setbox, and you can find about the setbox and the unboxing of the Battletome with the background in the description, in the playlist, so that you can find everything together. And this, it's about the rules, so now we can open such book and go to see about the rules inside and start to plan about having an army about Seraphon, because there are a lot of new units and a lot of things that you'd quite like about. Remember that you have two ways to play, so the Starborne and the Coalesced armies that we see having the relative spells, laws, the relative battle traits, command traits, and so on. So we go to see about such things and then about the units of such Battletome, because there are quite a lot of things to see. About the Starborne Constellation, we have two ways to play it, sub-alliances available, that are the Dracotion Tails and the Fangs of Sotek, that we see later in the description, because they have two different ways to play. And remember that they gain the units that you are going to use in such type of army, the keyword related, and so remember about such. They have Lords of Space and Time that make to the Slann, only Starborne Slann, use at the start of the hero faction different action other than the one available usually, so they are specific for the Starborne ones. The first one is Contemplation of Ancient Ones that make pick one friendly Starborne Slann, remember only Slann, replace one spell that they know from the lore of Celestial Domination with another spell from that table. Okay, you have 5 spells that you can choose, but I don't think so much that it will be really quite useful. Still, it's an action, so it's available. So if you need, it will be anyway available. So remember that when you go to select other things, you have also to remember that you have such option eventually. The second one is Special Translocation that pick one friendly Starborne Slann and then pick one friendly other Starborne unit wholly within 12 inches of them, and remove that other Starborne unit from the battlefield and set it up again on the battlefield more than 9 inches from all enemy units. That unit cannot move in the following movement phase. Still, it's really quite amazing one if you think about, because it's a complete redeployment, so you can send that unit to conquer objective, to contest objective eventually, if you think about, because eventually you can try to charge in the next charge phase, because it doesn't forbid the charging. So this is really quite strategic one, and it only requires an action. Okay, you have to be wholly within from the Slann, but at the same time it's not bad at all. So I think that you have to pay attention about such action, because it's something that could be really quite intriguing. And then have Cosmic Power. This is something that it's quite similar to what we have seen about the demons, about the abilities, and if you think about the Seraphon once add the keyword demons eventually. So if you have a Starborne army, the following are considered to be Cosmic Nodes. So friendly Starborne Wizard, so it can be Slann, but can be also Skinks, Priest, and so on. Friendly Starborne Astrolith Bearers, this is quite important, and we see that the Starborne, the Astrolith Bearers will be really quite important and quite amazing ones. Friendly Starborne Realmshaper and Giant Faction Terrain Features. Anyway, you can technically have only one of them for army, but okay. During the battle, you will be able to receive Cosmic Power Points, CPP, to spend on abilities and summoning units to the battlefield. You begin the battle with 0 Cosmic Power Points, and at the start of your hero phase, you receive 1 Cosmic Power Point for each friendly Starborne Wizard or friendly Starborne Astrolith Bearer on the battlefield. This is really quite important, because it means that you can start based on the amount of model that you have. It's something similar to what we've seen eventually about the Ossebo Reapers in some way about the command points, but this it's completely different in a way. So on the battlefield, and in addition you receive 1 Cosmic Power Point each time a friendly Starborne Wizard successfully casts a spell that is not unbound, successfully unbind a spell, or successfully dispel and end the spell. So it's quite important, because it means that you can accumulate such Cosmic Powers points also in the opponent phase, because if you are able to dispel and unbind the spell, you can gain and start to gain also points, and so it's really quite intriguing about such thing. And remember one thing, the Realm Shape Engine faction Terra Infused does not give you any of such cosmic power points. Still, it will be useful about using the points as a sort of nodes, like we have seen about the graveyards for the Graveyards, for example. So you have to remember about such detail. So now we go to see about spending such cosmic power points. And then we have about spending such cosmic power points. So in your hero phase, you can spend your cosmic power points in any of the following abilities, and so in any combination about such. You can only use the ability if you have enough cosmic power points to do so, and the same ability cannot be used more than once each phase. Otherwise, it could be problematic because it would mean or summoning twice the unit, or we see other things like this one that it's Azure Light, so you must spend 5 cosmic power points to use this ability. You can return the 3 Slann mods to each friendly Starborne units with a wound characteristic of 1 or 2 that is wholly within 12 inch of any friendly cosmic nodes. Roll separately for each unit. So all the units, in some way, it's even better than the game site of the Super Graveyards because it doesn't have a limit. It's all the units, they have to have 1 or 2 wounds as characteristics, so it means that technically are the Skinks and the Saurus ones. Still, it's about models, so the Saurus come back on full models, so I don't think that it's bad at all. This one is something that you can really think about having, for example, if you need protection, so on, to have. And remember that the location about how to use it's, for example, the Asteroid Builders, it's the one about the Realm Shape Engines. So you have quite a lot of things because the cosmic nodes are something that it's important about to create the node about. So you can really try to make that you have a lot of units centered on different models. It can be quite intriguing, such one. And then we have the other abilities about spending cosmic power points. We have protection of the old ones, so you must spend 10 cosmic power points to use this ability until the start of your next hero phase. Friend units affected by the reviving energies abilities have a word of 5+ instead of 6+. And if you're asking yourself what is this ability, it's the ability of the Absolute Bearer. So I think that you're going to include 2 of such models because they give you the cosmic power points, 1 for each of these, and then you can also safeguard a lot of models with a word of 6+, and if you apply such one with a word of 5+. So it's really quite interesting, I think, and it's one model that I quite like. Then I cleanse the realms, so you must spend 15 cosmic power points to use this ability. Roll a dice for each enemy unit within 12 inch of any friendly cosmic nodes. So remember that if you have 2 cosmic nodes close to 1 unit, enemy unit, it will be applied only once anyway. And on a 2+, the units suffer a number of mortal wounds equal to the roll. Okay, it's not bad because it's applied contemporarily to all the enemy units within 12 inch, so it's not something bad at all. Still, you have to pay attention when to use this so that you can maximize such rolling. And then we had the Summoning Seraphon, that it's the classical ability about the Starborne. So at the end of your movement phase, you can spend your cosmic power points to summon 1 unit from the following list and add to your army. Each unit you summon costs the number of cosmic power points shown on the list, and you can summon the unit if you have enough cosmic power points to do so, obviously. Units must be set up more than 9 inch from all enemy units and wholly within 12 inch of a friendly cosmic node. So remember that the cosmic nodes are important and the Realm Shape Engine is one of them. And here we have the list about, so we can see that there costs quite a lot the better ones, but still we can gain, and the ones that are, I can say, cheap, anyway, they can be quite useful to conquer objectives and so on. But we have also that we can reinforce the things. Anyway, the medium is something that it requires about 2 rounds to gain, 2 or 3 rounds. So don't think that you can really gain quite a lot of cosmic power points and summon continuously new units. You have to choose which one technically going to summon. Still, they can give you quite a lot of interesting things. We can have, for example, shooting. We can have, for example, battle lines to conquer objectives or so on. yeah, can gain quite a lot. And so you have to remember that this can be really quite intriguing. But remember that when you do this, you can make that at the end of your movement phase, so you can't move. You could charge, surely, but you have to pay attention about such detail, because you have to really understand what you can do with such units. So remember that about the cosmic power points, using them you can combine in different ways, and they can be useful based on what you need. So don't think only about using the regrooving the units with the Azul-like, or to summon units, or to damage the units. Think about what you need and try to adapt and be flexible with such things. Then we had the Starborne command traits, and we have two options about the Slann and about the Skinks. And we go to see about the Slann first. The first one is Arcane Might. This genre can control up to 3 predatory and spells per hero phase. It's quite nice, but you have to remember that do you have enough points to play with such free amount, because that one is problematic. In addition, when this genre casts a spell, the summon and end the spell, the range of that spell is doubled. This could be really quite amazing, because it means that some and the spells can reach more distance, or can be even when launched that even the first turn reach the enemy, so they can affect that. So it can be really quite interesting. Here you have to think really about, because the real interesting effect, it's not the first part about control up to 3, but this doubling the range of the spell. So this is quite nice. They have higher state of consciousness that ignore modifier positive and negative to zeros for attack that target this genre. That can be interesting to defend the Slann. So if you are thinking about having the Slann as the main role, it could be quite intriguing about such to make it defended. Then we have Lord of Selection Resonance, that each time this genre is successfully cast a spell that is not unbound, successfully unbinds a spell or end a spell, you can have 2 common power points instead of 1. This is something that it's a must, really. If you are going to think about the command traits, this is a must, because as you've seen, the cosmic power points give you quite a lot of things, and having 2 for each, it means that you can start easily having available, so that you can start to summon, heal and so on really fast. And in some way I suggest even to try to give to the opponent, if you have such command trait, the first turn, because you are able eventually to dispel on the battlefield, and so can gain quite a lot of cosmic power points. So I think that it can be interesting, and you can gain a lot from this. Obviously it has to be successfully, so it's not so simple. At the same time, it's not bad at all, so you have quite a lot of options to improve the way to dispel and so on, or to cast, and so you can have that this is the perfect combination. And then have Vast Intellect, that just know 2 extra spells from the Lore of Selection Domination. This, I want to remember you, have also the action about being able to change. So it's up to you to decide if you prefer to use this to have directly 2 added, and then eventually change which one you want. But remember that you have 5 spells in that spell lore. So, because you have the action, I don't suggest you to use eventually such command trait. I think that the Lord of Selection Resonance, it's a step higher than all the other ones. The other ones are still good, but I think that I'll choose the Lord of the Celestial Resonance if obviously I include a Slann in my army, but it's a Starborne army, so a Slann I think that it's a must-have. And then I had the command traits for the Skinks, and here I can say that maybe I prefer the one for the Slann. So we have Master of the Star Rituals, Wizards only. So this genre knows all spells from the Lord of Celestial Manipulation, that is the lore specific for the Skinks, in addition to any other spells they know. So it can be interesting even if maybe not. It's up to you to decide if this one can be nice. You have Nimble World Leader, that roll 2d6 instead of d6 when making run rolls for friendly Skinks unit while there are wholly within 18 inch of the genre. Could be quite interesting to conquer objectives, to move around, to move far from the opponent. So I think that could be interesting, even if it's not maybe the best, but it's interesting. And then we have Screw Strategies, that once per battle, at the start of your opponent combat phase, you can pick one friendly Seraphon unit, wholly within 18 inches of the genre. If that unit is within 12 inches of any enemy unit but more than 3 inches from all the enemy unit, it can immediately attempt a charge. So it's a sort of counterattack. So it means that it could be interesting in some way, because it means that it's something that you do in the opponent phase to gain. And if you think that you have the abilities, for example, for the Agrodon, that you could gain a bit better combat, it's something that it's nice, because it means that you can start from the opponent combat phase and so on, but remember that it's only once per battle, so you have to decide when to use it, because it's a single one friendly Seraphon unit that you can do, so it's problematic. And sincerely, if you think about if you need to use these ones or the Slann ones, I think that maybe are better the Slann ones. Then we have the artifacts about the Slann. We have also the ones about the Skink that we see later. So about the Slann, we have relocating orb once per battle. Remember, once per battle. At the end of a phase, if the bear has any wound allocated to them in that phase, you can remove the bear from the battlefield and set them anywhere wholly within 12 inches of a friendly cosmic node. So you bring from a cosmic node that it's a wizard to have the Slann, it's a wizard, so it's a cosmic node itself, and bring it to another cosmic node, and more than an inch from all enemy units. This is a teleport, and it's quite nice. Remember, it's quite nice. But really, do you really need it? Okay, so we have Prism of Amiontok, once per battle, again, only once per battle. At the start of the phase, pick one enemy unit within 12 inches of the bear and roll a dice. On a 1, nothing happens. On a 2+, that enemy unit suffer a number of mortal wounds equal to the roll. Sincerely, remember that you have the ability about using the cosmic power points. So I don't think that this is really so useful. Maybe you can find some usefulness, okay, but it's a Slann that has to have an artifact. And give this to a Slann, sincerely, I don't find it so useful. Then have Zodiac Dial. After the deployment, but before the first battle round, secretly record the number of battle round on a piece of paper. At the start of the battle round, reveal the information, and then here all the wounds allocated to the bearer. In addition, during the battle round, add 1 to the save for attacks that the bearer taken. Sincerely, this could be interesting, but again, it's once per battle, because it's the same to say that it's once per battle, and it's to guess. Okay, it's easy because you can say that if you think that you can start the opponent and so on, you can make the first. If you think that you are targeted so on, the second or third. But sincerely, I don't find this so useful, sincerely. Then we have Space Sword Save. So once per turn, not anymore for battle at least. At the end of your movement phase, if the bearer is on the battlefield, you can see that they will guide the arrival of the celestial reinforcement. If you do so, the next friendly Starborne unit to be set up on the battlefield can be set up more than 7 inches from all enemy units and more than 9 inches. So here you have to pay attention about some things. So that, first of all, the next friendly Starborne unit to be set up on the battlefield. And then we go to see about the Skink artifact. That sincerely, I can't dispute you, I prefer to the ones about the Slann. The first one is Incantation Rectrices. So at the start of each of your hero phases, you can heal up to the 3 wounds allocated to the bearer. And think about giving this, for example, to a Shink on Stegodon, or for example to a Oracle on Trogoldon. The Oracle on Trogoldon could heal 2d3 in each one, so it's quite nice. You have Strucked Stegodon Helm. Add 1 to the save rolls for attacks that target the bearer. In addition, add 1 to the damage statistic of melee weapon used by the bearer if they made a charge move in the same turn. So I think that it can be quite interesting. Really, if you are going to have, for example, the Shink of Stegodon, can be really interesting. Really. Then you have the Cloak of Fever. So unit that does not have the monster keyword, remember about such detail. Start at 1 from hit rolls for attacks that target the bearer. In addition, add 4 inch to the bear move characteristic and the bear can fly. Since it's a classical one, really. It's the usual one, but still it's really quite intriguing because it adds the protection and the movement and the fly. So it's really quite intriguing to move it on the battlefield. So it's something that I suggest you eventually to try, and you can create quite a lot of interesting combination eventually. So we can see about the spells. The first one that we see are about the Slann spells. Remember that there are also the ones about the Skinks that we see later. So we have 5 spells available. The first one is Comet's Call, that has casting value of 7, is subtly cast pick up to D3 enemy units on the battlefield. If the casting roll was 10 plus, pick up to D6 different enemy units instead of up to D3, and each of those units suffer D3 mortal wounds, roll separately for each unit. Nice, but I seem better in the Subblack Gavor's Battletome, so it's not so amazing, sincerely. Then we have Tebok Beneficence, that it's a spell that has casting value of 5 and a range of 18 inch. Is subtly cast, pick one friendly skink unit wholly within range and visible to the caster. Until the start of your next hero phase, start at 1 from wounds rolls for attacks that target that unit. It means both shooting and melee, so not bad at all. And if you think about it's quite nice because you have skink keyword related, so it means that it works, for example, also on the skink chief on Stegadon, on the oracle on the Troglodon. So you have quite a lot of different options that are quite useful for such, so it's nice. Again, it's not related only about the heroes, it can be also related about the units themselves, so you have also other options available. It's really quite interesting. Then we have Drain Magic, that is a spell that has casting value of 6, is subtly cast until the end of the phase. Remember, until the end of the phase, of the hero phase. Add 1 to the dispelling rolls made by friendly units, and start at 1 from the unbinding rolls made by enemy units. So it means that it's easier to unbind the spells of the opponent, and it's like having a bonus to your casting, because you decrease the option about the opponent to unbind your spells. So not bad at all. And here you have a way to pay attention one thing, that to make this really available, you should use this as one of the first spells that you use, because otherwise it's not so useful, because if you use as the last ones, the opponent doesn't even need to dispel it, because it works only until the end of the phase, so pay attention about such. Then have Mystical Unforging, that is a spell that has casting value of 8 and a range of 12 inch. Remember that the range is small, only 20 inch, but there are ways to improve such range. Think about the Astrolith Pillar, for example. Is subtly cast, pick one enemy unit within range invisible to the caster. Until the start of your next hero phase, the rank characteristic of that unit weapons is treated as nil. And so it means that it works for both shooting and melee ones. And so, not mind how great is this, the enemy units and so on, it's everything nil, so it doesn't have rand. Even if it is the biggest rand and so on, it's quite amazing, this one, because it's something that can quite change the unit that you are going against, so nice. Then we have Stellar Tempest, that is a spell that has casting value of 8 and a range of 24 inch. If subtly cast, pick one enemy unit within range and visible to the caster, roll a number of dice equal to the number of mod in that unit. For each 5+, that unit suffer more mortal wounds. Classical one, sincerely. And in comparison, it's even better than the Comet's Call, because the Comet's Call at the worst can make even less damages than this eventually, so okay. So these spells are nice, but if you think about, I think that the best one are the Tebok's Beneficence, the Drain Magic, and the Mystical Unforging. And here it's up to you to decide what you prefer, because there are different usages for such free spells. But I think that maybe I prefer the Drain Magic and the Mystical Unforging, sincerely. But it's up to you to decide, because they are all three amazing. The other two, I don't think that are so great, sincerely. And then we have the lore about the Skinks. We have only 3 spells available. So we have Cosmic Crash, that is a spell that has casting value of 7 and a range of 12 inch. Here you need for sure the Astrolith Pillar close. So it's subtly cast, pick one enemy unit within range and visible to the caster, roll a number of dice equal to the number of mod in that unit. For each roll that equals or exceed that enemy unit's save characteristic, that unit suffer 1 mortal wound. Good, but not so amazing. Then we have Celestial Harmony, that is a spell that has casting value of 5 and a range of 18 inch. Is successfully cast, pick one friendly Seraphon unit wholly within range and visible to the caster. If the casting roll was 10 plus, pick all friendly units wholly within range and visible to the caster instead of one. This it's not bad. Until your next hero phase, the unit picked has a bravery characteristic of 10. Okay, it's nice to be able to be sure that you'll have a better saving against the battle shock eventually, or if you are going to have moral test like against the terror guest son for the sublight and similar. Nice, but grit or not, it's up to you. Anyway, it's more related about having a saving related about the Skinks, I think. Then have the speed of Quanchi. That is a spell that has a casting value of 6 and a range of 18 inch. Is socially cast, pick one friendly Coxgo or Skink unit that is not a monster. Obviously, the Skink has not to be a monster because the Coxgo can't ride a monster, till now at least. That is wholly within range and visible to the caster. That unit can make a normal move. This it's nice because it means that in the hero phase you can make a normal move, so eventually with the movement then you can approach closer to the enemy and eventually charge or eventually reach better for the object and so on. So there are a lot of things that could be interesting. Sincerely, this one I'll take for sure because this is something that can be really quite intriguing and quite strategic to use. This is the main choice for every of such ones as spells available for the Skinks. Then we have the Starborne Constellation, and we have the sub-analysis of the Starbones. The first one that you see is Dracontion's Tail. So during the deployment, instead of setting up a Dracontion Tail unit on the battlefield, you can put this on the cells. And you can set up one unit on the battleship for each Dracontion Tail unit that you have set up on the battlefield, so a maximum of 50-50, remember. At the end of your movement phase, you can set up one or more unit of the reserve units on the battleship on the battlefield, wholly within 12 inch of a friendly cosmic node and more than an inch from all enemy units. Here I want to remember you the command traits about the Slanns that make you that you can set up these more than 7 inch instead of 9 inch. It could be quite intriguing, but once per turn, so you have to pay attention. So there are ways to utilize, but still I think that it's quite limited eventually. But again, remember that this it's about cosmic nodes, so it includes also the cosmic engine eventually. So remember that there is also that one. And then had the sub-analysis thanks of Sotek. Here we had the Serpent Strike, so the command in play of a thanks of Sotek army can use the deploy command ability up to 3 times in each of their movement phases. Not bad, because in addition, the first 2 times the deploy command is issued to any friendly thanks of Sotek Skink unit in the phase, no command points are spent. So it means that you can use twice without spending command points at all and still make the deployment. Otherwise, for 1, but anyway, you can do 3 times. So quite nice. I want to remember that you have also the command trait about the Skinks, the strategies that could be used quite interesting. But obviously, if you apply to the Skinks, you don't have the ones about the Slanns. So you have to decide which one you prefer. But it's not bad at all, this one, because it's really quite strategic. It lets you create a sort of traps for the enemies and make that you can move closer, you can move farther, so that you can try eventually to do a lot of different things. So it's something that I like. Sincerely, I'm not so sure which one I prefer about the Dracontion Tails and the Fangs of Sotek, because they have each one their own advantages. So it's up to you. This one it's more interesting in some way because it lets you to play each turn. The other one it's about being able to deploy, but you have to keep some unit in the 7 zone, so you have to think about them. But they are both quite intriguing. And then had the Coalesced part about the analysis for the Seraphon is similar to what we have seen about the Starborne, so they have their own abilities, their own command traits, artifacts, spells, and so on, and we'll go to see about them more in detail, and we can begin. As we've seen for the Starbones, also here we had the constellation related about the Coalesced, that are the Coast Crow and the Thunder Lizard, that we'll see better later. Anyway, remember that each unit that will be part of such sub-analysis that you are going to select of these 2 will have that keyword, so remember about such. And now we go to see also about the other rules that are quite important. The first ability to notice is Predatory Fighter that add 1 to the bite rules made for the Coalesced Saurus and Croxigor units with the Mighty Saurus Jaws, and Vice-like Jaws ability. So this make it do quite a lot of mortal wounds. And believe me, about the Saurus you can gain quite a lot. So pay attention, because this is something that can bring you quite a lot of amount of mortal wounds from the units. So remember that you have such a bit, because it's quite important. And then we had the Scaly Skin that we have seen in the previous Battletome about the Coalesced one, and here again start at 1 from the damage inflicted to a minimum of 1 by each successfully attack that targets a friendly Coalesced unit that has the keyword Saurus, Croxigor or monster. This is quite important, because it means that the monster, for example, are also related about the Skinks, so also those ones gain such option, and it's quite interesting. Moreover, you have to remember that it applies for both the shooting and the melee, so this is something that it's quite worth, because they make the units much more resilient. Moreover, if you think that the Saurus as unit now has two wounds as characteristic one, so it becomes much more resilient. Moreover, if you apply to such unit the option about having the Astrolight Bearer, because it makes having also the word of 6+, so it makes even better to be resilient to the wounds. So I think that this is one of the best that you can gain as option about such type of units. And then we had the Battletome Beast of the Dark Jungles. When you carry a monster rampage with a collection monster, you can carry out one of the monster rampage below, so that we are going to see now, instead of any other monster rampage that you can carry out with that unit. So we have 4 options available. The first one is Gargant Jaws. Only a Carnosaur, so one model that has the keyword Carnosaur, remember, can carry out this monster rampage. Pick one enemy model within 3 inches of this unit and roll a dice. If the roll is greater than the model's wound characteristic, it is slain. So remember that you can choose anything that has more than 5 wounds, and the bigger it is, worse it is, but still could be nice to kill some, eventually also heroes, so it can be an option. Then we have a Shaking Charge, only a Stegadon that has made a charge move in the same phase, so remember that has to be having charge in that phase, can carry out this monster's rampage. Pick one enemy unit within 1 inch of this unit and roll a dice. On a 4+, the strike last effect applied to that unit until the end of the following combat phase, and I think that this can be really quite nice, because applying the last strike it's not bad. Then we have Odious Roar, only a Troglodon, so remember that it's the Oracle on Troglodon only that can do this, can carry out this monster rampage. Roll a dice on a 2+ until the end of the following combat phase. The range of this unit Stench of Death ability is 12 inch instead of 9 inch. This it's quite intriguing, because it's a way to improve the shooting range, so I think that this is quite interesting, and we'll see later about such that could be quite interesting. And then we have Bludgeoning Sweep that apply only to a Bastiodon that can carry out this monster rampage. Pick one enemy unit within 3 inches of this unit that is not a monster and roll a dice, and if the roll is less than the number of models in that unit, that enemy unit suffer a number of mortal wounds equal to the roll. So this it's quite interesting, because it's good against big amount of models in the opponent unit, otherwise you can't make a lot of mortal wounds. Still, you have to understand, because it's better than the normal monster rampage, but you have to apply this to the right unit, otherwise it's better maybe the normal one, because at least you can do the mortal wounds without any problem about considering the number of opposite one. But still, you can make also a great amount of mortal wounds only simply rampaging, so it's nice. And then we had the command traits about the Slanns. Here we had the Slanns and the Saurus, not the Shinks that can gain the command traits. So we can begin with the Slann. We have Wrath of Aeons that once per battle, remember only once, at the start of your combat phase, so only your combat one, you can say that this channel will rouse the Wrath of the Seraphon. If you do so until the end of that phase, add 1 to the attack characteristic of melee weapons used by friendly Saurus and Croxigor units, where there are wholly within 12 inches of this unit. It can be useful, but you have to pay quite a lot of attention, because it's only one only use, so pay attention. Then we have Custodian of Divine Technology. Pick 2 artifacts of power from the treasure of the temple city table that we see later, that are the artifacts about Slann, and note them on your roster. This general has both of these artifacts of power, but they cannot be given any other. These 2 artifacts of power are in addition to the first artifact of power enhancement that you can take for your army. This it's really quite interesting, because if you're not interested about any of such command trait, or eventually to take a Saurus as your general, so take that one, it can be quite useful, because in some way you can multiply the artifact that you can have in your army, and 2 of them are applied to such Slann. And so it could be quite interesting about the combination that you can gain. Then we have Master of the Material Plane, so this general knows 2 extra spells from the lore of the Ancient Domain. That it could be nice anyway, but remember that it has 5 spells that one, so you have to decide if it's worth or not eventually. But remember that you can anyway change, because it's for everyone. But remember that you are able to change with the action eventually your spells for the Slann, so it's worth or not, it's up to you decide. Then we have Dominating Mind, so once per turn at the start of your hero phase, you can pick 1 friendly coalesced monster on the battlefield and say that it will have its mind dominated by this general. If you do so, roll a dice and on 2+, add 1 wound rolls for attack made with melee weapon by that unit until the start of your next hero phase. If the unit picked to have its mind dominated as a mount, this command trait only affects the attacks made by that unit's mount. This essentially it's really quite interesting, because it's a way to make that you can improve the wound rolls for one unit. Here about this you have to choose. Sincerely, I still prefer the Custodian of Divine Technology, but I don't disregard at all this nominating the mind, because it's really quite intriguing to improve the wound roll for, but it's only for coalesced monsters. Pay attention, because if you don't play too many of them, or you don't play coalesced monsters, this it's useless. So pay attention about the type of army rooster that you are going to play with. And then we have the command trait for the Saurus. Here it's really quite interesting. The first one that we see is Prime Warbeast, that it's only about a unit with a mount, only with a mount, that add 1 to the attack characteristic of the weapons used by this general mount. So it's nice eventually, but you have to understand if you prefer, for example, to have this as option, or you prefer to have the 4th command trait of the Slann, so that you can improve the wound roll instead of the number of attacks. So it's up to you to decide which one you prefer, because they are both quite interesting anyway. Then we have Thick Scaled Hide, that add 1 to the save rolls for attacks that target this general. A classic one, it's always welcome, sincerely. And then we have Vengeful Defender, that at the start of your hero phase, if this general is wholly within your territory, remember your territory, then you can pick up this general and up to 2 other friendly Saurus or Croxigor unit. Remember, keyword Saurus and Croxigor, wholly within the range of this general, to each make a normal move. It means that you can pick and make these ones, so 2 units plus this general, make a normal move. This could be quite interesting to approach the opponent if you want to charge, or maybe you want to conquer the objectives, you want to do a lot of things. I think this can be really quite interesting, because it's a free movement, so it means that you can move, then in your movement phase you can move again, and then even charge. So it's something that it's quite interesting. Sincerely, strategically talking, this it's one of the best that you have. And about the collection, I think that I'm quite interesting about having, because eventually you can pick this channel and not move and having still the option, or you can move this channel cooperating with the other units that you pick. So this is something that creates a lot of mobility about combat unit for the Seraphon. So this is something that I quite like, and quite a lot. Then we had the artifacts about the Slann. I want to remind you that the command trait of the Slann, Custodian of the Ancient Technology, you can take 2 of these and give to the same Slann. So pay attention about such detail. The first one is From of the Lost Gods, that add 4 to the bearer move characteristic and add 1 to the bearer wound characteristic. it's quite nice, but not so great, sincerely. We have Crystalline Skull. The builder starts with a power reserve of 0. Each time the builder successfully casts a spell that is not unbound, increase the builder power reserve by 1. Once per battle in your hero phase, you can say that the builder will shatter the Crystalline Skull. If you do so, pick one enemy unit within 12 inch, so quite small, and of the builder, and roll a number of dice equal to the power reserve. For each 3+, the unit suffer 1 mortal wound. Okay, technically it's not so bad. The function is in some way similar to what we have seen about the cosmic points, but sincerely I don't find it so great, because it's only once per battle that you can use, so you have to pay attention about such. Eventually you can combine with the one that we've seen about the cosmic powers and see if you are interested. Then you have Itsuki Gloves, that at the start of your hero phase you can heal 1 wound allocated to the beard. In addition, in your hero phase you can reroll 1 casting roll or 1 casting dispelling roll for the bearer, and in the enemy hero phase you can reroll 1 unbinding for the bearer. Sincerely, this is something that I suggest you to take, because if you are going to use such, it's a way to make the Slann better to casting, so it's surely welcome. It's here and more you can reroll 1, but it's always welcome. Then I have Cloth Familiar, that once per battle, again once per battle, at the start of your hero phase, you can say that the bearer will be blessed by Tepuk. If you do so, the bearer can attempt to cast 1 additional spell in that hero phase, and that spell can be any spell from the lore of the Ancient Domination, so the spell of the Slanns. So this can be quite interesting, because if you need once the thing that you had to cast another spell, you had the option. And here, as I said, you can combine in different ways, because for example it's perfect combination this with the Crystalline Skull, for example, so that you can use this to empower even more, and then shatter and make even more mortal wounds on a 3+, okay, for each, but still it's an option. So remember that you have quite a lot of different options about, and then there are also the ones about the Saurus. So you have to understand if you are interested about having more artifacts, or you want to play with what you have, and so select different approaches for the Coalesced. So there are quite a lot eventually of combos. And then had the artifacts about the Saurus. The first one is Sotex Gaze, that enemy models with a wound characteristic of 1 or 2 cannot contest objects while they are within 6 inches of the bearer. Sincerely, not bad at all. It's quite interesting about controlling the objectives. Then you have Blood Rage Pendant. Add 1 to the attack characteristic of the bearer's melee weapons. If the number of wounds allocated to the bearer is equal or greater than half of the bearer's wound characteristic, add 2 attacks instead. This is quite interesting, even if only about adding the attacks. Here I'm quite curious about if it also involves the mount eventually, because it's really quite intriguing about, because otherwise it's nice. But saying that it's the bearer's melee weapons, I think that it's not. It's only about the bearer, so the rider eventually. And this that make attack 2 more attacks instead can be quite interesting. But remember that if it doesn't involve the mount, it's something that maybe you can choose something else. Then you have the third one, that it's pick the Blade of Realities, so pick one of the bearer melee weapons and improve the rend characteristic of that weapon by 1, and it's something quite welcome. In addition, add 1 to the damage inflicted by each successful attack made with that weapon if that target a hero. So nice, sincerely not the best, but it could be quite useful. Sincerely, of this, the one that I like more is the Sotek Gaze, because it's more versatile and quite strategic. But also the other ones are related about the combat and nice. And then we have the spell laws about the Seraphon for the Coalesced part. Here we have the part about the Slann, and then we see also the part about the Skinks wizard eventually. So here we have 5 spells available for the Slanns. The first one is the Earth Trembus. So this is a spell with a casting value of 8. It successfully cast, pick one of the corners of the battlefield and draw a straight line between a corner and the closest part of the caster base. So this is quite intriguing, because if successfully put, you could take a lot of, I can say, distance. Roll a dice for each enemy unit passed across by that line. On a 4+, that unit suffered D3 mortal wounds. Okay, not the best. As I said also for the one about the Starborne, I've seen something better in Supergraves. Still, it's quite nice anyway. Then we have Empowered Celestite. That is a spell that has casting value of 7 and a range of 18 inch. Is successfully cast, pick one friendly Saurus unit wholly within range and visible to the caster until the start of your next hero phase. Improve the rank characteristic of that unit celestial weapons by 1. A celestial weapon is any weapon that has celestial in the name, so all the melee weapons technically. This it's quite nice because it's a way to improve the rand, and if you think that you can combine, for example, for a Saurus of hero that can have also the Blade of Reality, you can gain a great size about the rand, so not bad. Then we have Drain Magic, that is a spell that has a casting value of 6. If this successfully cast until the end of the phase, add 1 to the Dispelling rolls made by friendly units and subtract 1 from the Unbinding rolls made by the enemy units. This is something that we've seen as before in the Starborne. It's identical, and I quite like because it's a way that it controls eventually, because it improves your way to cast. And remember that technically you have an artifact that make you re-roll the casting, so remember that it's quite nice. And this it's nice, but remember that this it's one of the first spells that you have to cast with your Slann, otherwise it's not so great. Then we have its Invigoration, that is a spell that has casting value of 6 and a range of 12 inch. So small amount. Again, when you need to improve, I suggest you the Astrolate Bearer to improve the range of the spells. So if a successfully cast, pick one friendly monster wholly within range and visible to the caster until the start of your next hero phase. Use the top row of that unit's damage table regardless of how many wounds it has suffered. So to have the monster always at maximum power, I like a lot. If you are going to play with monsters, this is surely one of the main choices. Then we have Telepathic Summons, that is a spelling with a casting value of 6 and range 9 inch. Again, here, eventually, a Astrolate Bearer it's welcome. Is successfully cast, pick one friendly Saurus unit that is not a monster and that is visible to the caster. Remove that unit from the battlefield and set up again on the battlefield within the range of the caster. This is quite nice because it's really a way to translate and so on. You can conquer objectives and so on, and it doesn't talk about any minimum distance from the enemy and so on. I think that this will be fact. So this it's really nice. Moreover, because you can take a unit that it's too much distance and so on, eventually put on conquer or contesting an objective, or try then to charge an enemy. So there are a lot of ways to use such spell. It's really a teleportation. This it's one of the must-have spells because it's a way to mobilize a lot your army. So this together with what we have seen about the command traits of the Saurus that let you in the hero phase move again if it totally were within. This can be a really perfect combination to mobilize and create really a mobile army for your playing. So really amazing. Then we have the spells about the Skinks of the Coalesced. Here we have 3 spells available. The first one is Light of Chotek, that is a spell with a value of 7 and a range of 12 inch. If it's not enough, remember that you have the Astrolate Bearer to improve the range. And it's actually cast, pick one friendly Seraphon mod wholly within range and visible to the caster. Roll a number of dice equal to the number of wounds allocated to it. For each 5+, heal 1 wound allocated to the model. This is quite amazing, because remember that to make comeback models, you need the cosmic power points and ability related. About this, instead, it's only related about a single model, so it's perfect about the heroes and about the monsters, so with a great amount of wounds, so quite nice. Or eventually to heal another model that has more than 2 wounds, so anyway, it can be interesting, but you have to pay attention. This is something that I really select. Then we have Evilly Frenzy, that it's a spell with a casting value of 7 and a range of 18 inch. It's actually cast, pick one friendly Seraphon unit wholly within range and visible to the caster. Until the end of the turn, you can run and still charge later in the turn. this is quite amazing, because remember that you have a lot of options about movement, because you have, for example, in the hero phase about the command trait for the Seraphon, for the Saurus of the Seraphon. So here you can make double movement, run, and still charge. Really, you have a lot of amazing options that are available, and it can be a monster, it can be a unit, so it has to be a Seraphon unit. This is quite amazing, and it can let you have quite a lot of weight and create a sort of alpha strike. So quite nice, because you can, for example, use a combination of the 2 units and the general that can move, and then use such spell to create a sort of other things, because you can make that with the way to run, you can add movement so that you can charge, so create an amazing alpha strike. Then have Tide of Serpents, that is a spell with a casting value of 7 and a range of 15 inch. That's strange. It's actually cast, pick one enemy unit within range and visible to the caster, roll a number of dice equal to the number of models in that unit. For each 5+, that unit suffer 1 mortal wound. Classical one, but not bad. Eventually, remember that again with the Astrolite Bearer you can improve the range eventually. This is good against unit that has a lot of models, but still it's something that it's not bad. If you have more than one Skink, eventually this could be really quite easily chosen, and it's still quite nice. And then have the Coalesced Constellations, that are the sub-alliances about the Seraphon Coalesced. So here it's having 2, and the first one it's Quartz Claws, that has the Savage Incarnate, that has add 1 to the wound rolls for attacks made with melee weapons by friendly Quartz Claws, Saurus and Croxigor units as keyword, Saurus and Croxigor, that made a charge move in the same turn. This it's really quite interesting. Moreover, about the Saurus, because if you think you have the combination with the command trait for the Slann Dominating Mind, so that the monster in that way it's having a +2 to the wound roll. So not bad at all, really. And anyway, being able to have this bonus to the wound roll, it's always welcome. So it's something that it's appreciated, really, and so it's one of the best that you can choose. But we can go to see also the other ones, because you have to choose which one you prefer, because there are good options for both of them. And the second of the sub-alliances is about the Thunder Lizard, that has the ability Mighty Beast at War, that at the end of the charge phase you can carry out 2 monster rampage for each friendly Thunder Lizard monster instead of 1. And this is quite amazing, because I want to remember you that you have the normal ones, but you have 4 additional ones brought by the Coalesced battle traits. So you can gain at least 3 of the monsters of the Thunder Lizard subfaction that are able to use this double action without even repeat. So quite nice, really something that you have to think about. It all depends by the rooster that you create, if it's related about the Saurus and Croxigor, so about the Croxigor that it's preferable, or about the Thunder Lizard. And so it's up to you, because you can gain quite a lot of bonuses from each of these sub-alliances. Then have the grand strategies. So here are the things that we have to choose about. The first one is Realm Shaper Guardians, so that when the battle ends, you can complete this grand strategy if you have Coalesced Realm Shaper Engine or Starborne Realm Shaper Engine on the battlefield, and there are no enemies models within 12 inch of it, and it was not affected by Accessor Mesh to Rubble monster rampage. So here it can be not difficult at all or quite problematic. Still, it's quite nice, and it's quite, I can see, affordable to do. Then we have Repel Corruption. When the battle ends, you complete this grand strategy if there are no enemy wholly within your territory. This is quite problematic to complete. Then we have Continuous Expansion, that when the battle ends, you complete this grand strategy if there is at least one friendly Seraphon unit wholly within each large quarter of the battlefield. And this, I think that it's quite doable if it's not a problem, because you have a lot of mobility and you can eventually make a sort of teleportation, so it's not a problem. Then you have Fulfill the Grand Plan, that when the battle ends, you complete this grand strategy if you completed 4 or more battle tactics, and each of those battle tactics was from the March of the Seraphon host table that we see right now. Here can be problematic, so about this I think that it's not so easy to do, and so I prefer to choose the other three eventually. So eventually the Realm Shaper Guardian and the Continuous Special that are much better. So here you have really quite a lot to choose eventually as the gun strategies to choose. Then we had the battle tactics specific for the Seraphon. We had the first that it's Stampede of Scales, so pick 3 different friendly Seraphon monsters. You complete this tactic if each of those units runs in the following movement phase, and finish the run within 6 inches of at least one of the other units you picked, and wholly within the enemy territory. This is something that is related about being able to make such movement wholly within the enemy territory, and if you have these 3 Seraphon monsters, not so difficult, not so easy, but if you don't have enough monsters, simply this battle tactics is something that you can't do. Then have Celestial Obliteration. Pick 1 enemy unit on the battlefield. You complete this tactic if that unit is destroyed this turn by mortal wound caused by a spell or the abilities of an end spell. Sincerely, not so difficult, could be done also by Coalesce, but it's mainly related about the Starborns, because I think that they can do it much better. Then have Overwhelming Numbers. Pick 1 object controlled by the enemy. Remember, that has to be controlled by the enemy. You complete this tactic at the end of this turn if you control this object and friendly units contesting it have the keyword skink. All the friendly units. So it means that you don't have to have the keyword Saurus or other things. So you have to pay attention that you have to have all those models being with the keyword skink. So something that it's limiting. And you have to keep it away from the enemy unit. It's not a problem, because technically you can also kill it by shooting and so on. It's not so problematic. Still something that to pay attention. Then you have Apex Predator. So pick 1 enemy monster, and you complete this tactic at the end of this turn if that enemy unit was destroyed by an attack made by a friendly Seraphon monster. So it's big against big, and you have to kill that. Not so difficult, but pay attention about, so that it's the model with the keyword monster to kill that monster opponent one. Then have Cold-Blooded Resilient. Pick 1 friendly Saurus or Crocs unit within 3 inches of an enemy unit. You complete this tactic at the end of this turn if that unit was not destroyed, did not retreat, and was not removed from the battlefield. So you have to keep that there and be attentive to not completely destroy it. It's not so simple, because it means that you have to engage, still engage, and make that the opponent don't try to do something bad. So it's nice, but at the end not so easy. Then we have Pick Hunters. So pick 1 enemy unit within 3 inches of only 1 friendly Agrodon unit. So you have to have the Agrodon units in your roster. You complete this tactic at the end of this turn if that unit is within 3 inches of 2 or more friendly Agrodon units. So really, you have to have at least 2 Agrodon units and bring together 10 there on that unit. So it's not so difficult, not so easy. It depends by your roster. This one, if you don't have any Agrodon unit, or you have only one, for example, you can't complete. So you have to pay attention about such. And they have the core battalion that it's mainly related about the Thunder Lizard, because we have the leader that has to be a Stegadon chief, and the other 2 models that you need for sure to have to create such core battalion, that has to be having the Bastillodon or the Stegadon, but anyway, it's nice. So we have 2 abilities loaded for this. The one is Slayers. Once per battle, 1 unit from this battalion can receive an all-out attack or unleash hell command without the command being issued and without a command point being spent, so not bad. And also another option that it's once per battle, we have 1 from this battalion can receive at the double or road to victory command without the command being issued and without the command point being spent. So this is really quite interesting, but remember that it's quite really close about what you can put in such core battalion and how you can play. So it's mainly related, as I said, about the Thunder Lizard, and eventually you can also do this for Starborns, but you have to pay attention about the choosing for what you can gain. So quite interesting, but specific. And then we had the units that I'll go to describe about the rules and the general usage that we can have. And about this, I think that more than using these pages, I'll use these cards because I have and are better to use eventually to see the contents inside so that we can find better. Still, it's everything the same, so it's simply a way to make better sight about the contents so we can go and see them. Here we can begin with Lord Croak, that has an amazing model. I love such one, since it's the base of what we've seen about the new Slann as model. So we can find about the profile. So it has 18 wounds and it's quite resilient because it has the save of 4+, but it has also the rules that for innumerable ages, so that at the end of each phase, so each phase, if any wounds are allocated to this model, roll 3d6 and add to the number of wounds allocated to this model to the roll. On a 20+, that model is slain. On any other rolls, here all wounds allocated to this model. So it means that, as the note say, if Lord Croak suffers 18 wounds or more, it's before the end of the phase, it's immediately slain. But you need 17, because with 3d6 you roll 3 once, it's anyway 20+, so anyway it's dead. So it's something that you have to remember about such, but it also means that if you roll 3/6, it means that you can gain 18, so you only need 2 free wounds to kill this model, so it's quite lucky and unlucky, so you have to pay attention, but still it's quite resilient. Anyway, this is a wizard that it's less than Nagash technically, because Nagash can cast many more spells and dispel much more than this. So this unit can attempt to cast 4 spells in your hero phase and combine 4 spells in the enemy hero phase. Remember that if it is part of a Starborne army, it knows all the spells of that army for the Slanns. Same for the Coalesced, about the Coalesced ones. It's a War Master, so if it's included in a Seraphon army, it's treated as general, even if it's not the model picked to be a general. And then it has Fly. So we have Arcane Vessel, so that, as usual about the Slanns, so that when the unit attempt to cast a spell, before making the casting roll, you can pick either one friendly Skink wizard within 12 inch of this unit, or one friendly Oracle anywhere on the battlefield. And the Oracle on Trogon, I think that you'll take anyway. If you do so, and the spell is successfully cast and not unbound, you must measure the range and visibility for that spell from that Skink wizard or Oracle. It has also a special way to attack, because the attack characteristic of this unit cannot be modified. Each time this unit attacks with this Azurit Force barrier, roll 1 dice for each enemy model within range. Roll 5 dice instead of 1 for each enemy monster within range. On a 5+, that model unit suffers 1 mortal wound. Remember that the range is 3 inch, so it can be really quite resilient eventually. It has also something that it's quite nice to gain command points, because at the start of your hero phase, roll 3 dice for this unit. For each 4+, you receive 1 command point, so it's really quite interesting, but it has also some bonuses to the casting at least, because add 2 to casting, dispelling and unbind roll for this unit. In addition, that unit can attempt to unbind enemy spells that are cast anywhere on the battlefield and attempt to dispel and spells anywhere on the battlefield. So at least it's something that I recall Nagash at least. So we have Golden Death Mask. So at the start of the combat phase, you can pick one enemy unit within 12 inch of this unit and visible to it, and roll 2d6. If the roll is equal or greater than that unit bravery characteristic, the strike last effect applies to that unit until the end of that phase. Nice, but against certain unit not so much, and the base bravery is usually 8, 9. Think about that has almost all 10, so not so great. I also Celestial Deliverance, that is the specific spell about Lord Croak, that is a spell with a casting value of 7 and a range of 12 inch. This unit can attempt to cast this spell multiple times in your hero phase, so remember, multiple times, so you can cast this again and again. Each time this spell is successfully pick up 3 different units within the range and visible to the caster. Each of these units suffer d3 mortal wounds. This could be quite interesting. Remember that you have the Arcane Vessel eventually to make that you can cast eventually on unit on the battlefield. or that with an astrolith bearer you can improve the range to 18 inches. So it's not so bad, it's quite nice. Moreover, that you can repeat, it's like having an arcane missile, but you can repeat. So also because you have 3 different units to select. This it's really quite interesting. So this unit could be nice. Moreover, because it doesn't cost too much, and so it could be really a pick to personalize your army in a way that it has quite a bit of magic. And I've had the Slann Master with this new model, and I quite like this, sincerely. And we can find about the profile. It has technically only 9 wounds, but remember that Lord Cook it's quite special about, so again a save for plus. We can find that it has not a bad profile about combat, because it has 6 attack on a free, rend 1 and 1 damage, but you can modify such one with the spells and so on, so not bad. It is a wizard, obviously, that can cast 3 spells in your hero phase and attempt to unbind 3 spells in the enemy hero phase. So about this, I want to remember you that with the Starbones you can try to use the command trait so that it can gain more about the cosmic power, so that you can then cast, so you have at least the possibility to double these things, and so it makes quite easier to gain that abilities. So we have fly, that usually we have the same thing that we've seen about Rook, about the Arcane Vessel, so that you can use a Skink Wizard within 12 inch or an Oracle anywhere on the battlefield to use as a medium to cast the spells. But for sight, that it's a bit less than what seen about Croak, so at the start of the hero phase roll 2 dice for this unit, and on each 4+ you can receive 1 command point, but not bad at all anyway. We have gift from the Evians that make that you can use this command ability in your hero phase. The command can only be used by this unit, and the unit that receives the command must be a friendly Seraphon unit. Until your next hero phase, that unit can fly. In addition, add 1 to the save rules for attack made with missile weapons that target that unit until your next hero phase. This it's not bad, because it makes a unit much more maneuverable, and remember that it works on all the Seraphon unit. Thinks about the Agrodon that can fly or so on. It's quite interesting. They have Master of Order, so to add 1 to the casting, dispelling and unbinding rolls for this unit. In addition, this unit can attempt to unbind enemy spells that are cast anywhere on the battlefield, and attempt to dispel end spells anywhere on the battlefield. This it's really quite interesting. I think that having 2 of the Slanns could be really quite intriguing eventually to have dominance about magic. Then we have Celestial Equilibrium, that is a spell that has a casting value of 6. It's actually cast until the end of the phase. Add 1 to the casting roll for friendly other than the caster. This it's something that it's really amazing, and remember that you have to use this before every other spells. Okay, it doesn't work for the other of the spells of this model, so eventually you can try to cast the other spells of such model and then cast this, so that you can try to trap the enemy about this paradigm. And then we have Shield of the Odd Ones. So this is a spell with a casting value of 7. It's actually cast as a ward of 4+ against mortal wounds until your next hero phase. Only mortal wounds, remember about such. Still, it is a ward of 4+, so not bad at all. Really, here you can gain quite a lot of fun playing with this. And I could even suggest you to try to think about having 2 of these if you're going to play with the Starborne, because you could gain quite a lot, and control magic, it's really quite amazing. Then I want to treat together the Saurus Blood and the Saurus Carvetan on Carnosaurus, because the profile are quite similar. And if we go to see, we can find that the profile at the end it's really quite similar, because obviously the Carnosaurus is the same, so you can't see any difference about that table. It's something quite good, because at least it doesn't fall quite fast. But we can find that the All Blood has something better than the one about the Scarvetta, and it's the missile weapon, because it has the Sunbolt Gauntlet. About the rest, as you can see, the profile is the same. The only thing that really change are about the abilities, and also these are in some way quite similar, because Blood Frenzy is the same. So we had that the Blood Frenzy is something that if any enemy models are slain by wounds caused by this unit attacks, for the rest of the battle this unit is the Blood frenzied. Add 1 to the wounds rolls for attack made by this unit mounts while it is blood frenzied. So if you see this, the old blood has an advantage because it doesn't say that it has to be the mount, the attacks of the mount to make such wounds and slain, but that it's the model, so you can also use the missile weapon about to gain such thing. So it's nice. Then had Tarot that it's common to both, so that and we have seen this also for the Tarot Guest and the Dragon Zombie for the Sublight levels. So enemy units cannot receive the Inspiring Presence command while they are within 3 inches of any units with this ability. And what it did really change about such are these abilities. So we had that the blood has this, that it's Ancient Warlord, so that this unit can use the same command up to 2 times in the same phase. If it does so, each command must be received by a friendly Seraphon unit. No command is spent for the second time this unit issued the command in that phase. It can be quite useful if you think about maybe casting a rally or something like this, so it's not bad. Instead, about the Scar Veteran, we have this, that it's meme and tier. So at the end of the combat phase, you can pick one enemy unit within 1 inch of this unit and roll a number of dice equal to the number of wounds allocated to that enemy unit. For each 5+, that unit suffers 1 mortal wound. Here it's quite interesting, but you have also to remember one thing, and this it's what is the unit, because if a unit has 1 wound characteristic, it's simply useless because it doesn't have wounds allocated. If it has 2 and it does suffer 1 wound, you roll 1 roll. It's better against the models with a lot of wounds, so heroes, monsters, and so on. So you have to pay attention about such details because they are really quite important to understand better how these work, because it's something to maximize such ones. I love such models, so I'm really quite curious to bring them on the battlefield. Then I had the Saurus of Blood, that it's quite interesting because it has 7 wounds and save 3+, so quite nice. It has not so great profile, sincerely. I thought that it would have much more damages eventually. But anyway, it's Predator Exemplar, so in the combat phase, when you pick this unit to fight for the first time in that phase, you can pick one friendly Saurus Warriors or Saurus Guard unit wholly within 12 inch of this unit, and that has not yet fought in that phase. This unit and that unit can fight one after the other in the order you choose. So this is quite interesting because it means that you can really choose the ways, and it's something that you have to consider because it means that you can really change the flow of the battle with this. We have Wrath of the Seraphon, so that in the combat phase, if this unit uses the all-out attack command to a friendly Saurus Warriors or Saurus Guard unit, in addition to the effect of the command ability, add 1 to the wound rolls for attack made by melee weapons by that unit until the end of that phase. It's not bad at all. And remember that, okay, it's only about Saurus Warriors and Saurus Guard. Still, being able to wound better is something that it's always welcome, really. And you only need to use the all-out attack eventually, so it's nice. Then we had this, that it's Mighty Saurus Jaws, so each time this unit fight, after all its attack has been restored, pick one enemy unit within 1 inch of this unit and roll 3 dice. These dice rolls are referred as bite rolls. For each bite, roll if you roll a 6+, that enemy unit suffer 1 mortal wounds. And remember that with the Coalesced you have a bonus to such rolls, so you go to 5+, and it's anyway something that it's added to the attacks and they do mortal wounds, so maybe you don't have to think about really having something that it's work, but still it's a single dice, or better 3 dice, so a single rolling that anyway can make mortal wounds. So it's something that I suggest you to really think about because it's nice. Now I've had the Saurus Absolute Beer, and this is a mod that you must have in your army, even double, because really you need eventually to use this. So really think about such, because it's a bit less resilient than the old blood. As you can see, 6 wound and save 4+, even 1 attack less, but anyway it's really quite interesting. It has Celestial Conduit, so add 1 to the casting roll for friendly Seraphon wizard within 12 inch of any friendly unit with this ability, and add 6 inch to the range of any spells that cast within 12 inch of this. So this is quite interesting because if you think about the Slann, it can improve +1 the spells, and so it means that it gain a bonus of 2+ directly, and +6 to the range, so quite amazing. Moreover, it has that the friendly Seraphon unit have a ward of 6+ where there are wool within 12 inch of any friendly unit with this ability. And remember that the Starbones have, using the cosmic power points, the option about having this ward being 5+ to all these abilities. So if you have 2 of this astrolated beater, you can make that spend one time this. You can make 5+ from all of them, so quite nice. We have Mighty Saurus that we've seen without blood, so each time this unit fight after all its attack has been resolved, pick one enemy unit within 1 inch of this unit and roll 3 dice. These dice are referred as bite rolls. For each bite on a 6+, the enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wounds. In the Coalesced ones, this is on a 5+. As I said, it's something that I quite like, and it's something that it's worth, really. It's something that you could really think about gain quite a lot. This is a model that it's really good support for everything that you want to do. That it's combat phase, that it's magic and so on. It's amazing and it's nice. Moreover, remember that it's a totem one, so you can have the abilities related about the totem. So nice. Then I go to treat together the Corkscrew and the Corkscrew Spawn because they are quite similar in a lot of things. The profile, for example, about the wounds, save and so on are exactly the same. About the combat profile, they are almost the same, but the Corkscrew has 1 more attack instead the Waspawn has more rend. So it's up to you to decide if you want to base on this you've chosen. Then we have Skink Guidance that it's common, so that the unit champions of Skink unit that can use your command to this unit if this unit is wholly within 20 unit of that Skink unit. So okay, you had the range that it's problematic, but remember that usually the Skink champion could use a command only their own unit. The other thing that it's in common is the part about the vice-like jaws, so that each time this unit fight, after all of its attack has been resolved, pick one enemy unit within 1 inch of the unit and roll 3 dice for each model in this unit within 1 inch of that unit. These dice roll are referred as bite rolls, and for each bite roll of 6, that enemy suffers 1 mortal wound. Remember that it's for each of the models in this unit, so if they are complete you roll 9 rolls, so nice. And I had the part related about the difference between these models. So we had that Corkscrew has sweeping blows, so if the modified hit roll for an attack made with that Drakebite Maul or the Moonstone Hammer, so the 2 ones here, is 6 and the target has 10 or more models, the attack scores 2 hits on the target instead of 1. Good, but you had to make that, you had to make a 6 against a unit that have more than 10 models, so good but not so good. Instead, the Waspawn as a special, we had Satat 1 from the wound rolls for attack made with missile weapon to the target unit. It makes it quite more resilient even without any buffer, so not bad. And then we have Spawn of Sotic that add 1 to the characteristic attacks of this unit melee weapons if any models in the friendly Skink unit wall within 12 inch of this unit has been slain in this phase. This is quite problematic because it means that you had to have the melee, so it means that Skink has to be killed in the melee phase, so in close combat. So Skink should avoid the combat, and it's not so simple, so it's something that you have really to pay attention, because anyway it's not say wounds allocated or so on, but slain, so you can't even refer about monsters or so on. So it's problematic eventually, but still could be quite nice. And about this, which one do you want to play, because they are both really quite good, and it's only up to you. The difference point is quite small, so it's mainly related about which one you prefer. Remember that the Coalesced are more suited about having such ones, because with the Coalesced you gain also the option about the bonuses again if you charge and so on with the close. So it could be quite interesting, and so you have simply to choose how and when to play. And now I'll treat 3 units together because they are sold together, so it's okay to see them all together. The main leader about such ones, remember that each of such ones is separately as a movement. Anyway, remember also that it's coalesced. So the profile is not bad because it has 6 wound and save 5+, but it's not so good in combat or shooting. At least it has some shooting. And as you can see, the ability is something that could be interesting, but it's not so great anyway, because once per battle in your hero phase, you can pick one enemy unit within 6 inches of this unit and roll a dice. On a 2+, models in that unit cannot contest ability until the start of the next turn. So not bad, but not so great. It is accompanied literally by Thunderquake, that it's, we can call the bodyguard of it, that it's technically old blood, really, also the keyword it's about this. So it has the same attacks of an old blood. It has Savage Protector, so that you can reroll hit rolls and wound rolls for attack made by this unit while they are within 3 inches of a friendly tiki-taka, that is this model. So nice, but it has to be quite close to be able to use such ability. We have Boastful Presence, so add 3 to the bravery characteristic of friendly Star Blood Stalkers, so these ones, remember, that are wholly within 9 inches of this unit, and that's the mighty Saurus Jaws that we've seen previously. So again, 3 dice to a unit within 1 inch after the cross combat of this unit, and for each 6+, it's suffer 1 mortal wounds. And remember that being a coalesced, if you play in a coalesced army, you gain a bonus of 1 to the roll of such fight. And I've had this, that is the Star Blood Stalkers, that are skin chameleons with 2 wounds, not bad. And we can find that it has a range of 16, 2 attacks, hit and roll on 3. We had that it has Star Venom, so if the modified hit roll for an attack made with the Dart Pipe, so the missile weapon, the suffer is 6, so make it suffer 1 mortal wounds to the attack sequence. And this is quite nice because anyway there are a way to make them work quite nicely. And I've had the other one that is Sake Duty. Before you allocate wound or mortal wound to a friendly tiki-taka, this model. So or instead of making word roll for a mortal wound or a wound that we allocated with to a friendly tiki-taka, if this unit is within 3 inches of that friendly tiki-taka, you can roll a dice on a 1, 2 that wound or mortal wound is allocated to tiki-taka as normal. On a 3+, it's allocated to this unit instead, so they are bodyguards. And sincerely, it's something that you have to think, because if you want to include this, you should almost make this be hidden. Okay, you lost something about this, but these 2 ones could be moved quite interestingly together. Tiki-taka is the flow of such combination, because it's the one that sincerely it can't do anything peculiar, because the only thing that it could use is that it's a skink and it's a hero. So okay, it can use issue commands, but it's not a priest, it's not a wizard, it doesn't have anything particular, so it's a problem about how to use that specific unit. Still, it's not bad, because if you think about how many points you invest about such combination, I think that it's something to look for eventually. And then we had the Saurus Veteran on Agrodon. This is the replacement about the Saurus Veteran on Cold One, and sincerely I'm quite glad about this substituting, because sincerely, I never liked the cold ones, not the Saurus, but the cold ones that were. And I hoped to have, sincerely, some, I can say, replacing about it, and we had this. And sincerely, I'm quite glad of what we had. So, this is a unit that has quite a good profile, because it has, anyway, 8 wounds, movement of 8, and save 4+. It has a good profile, and you had to choose about the spear or the club. Sincerely, I'd go about the spear because it has a better rend, but eventually remember that you can play with the other option that you have about, and so have more attacks that are quite useful anyway. It's how you decide how you go better. And it has one ability, so that it is Primal Rage, that is common with the Agrodon Lancers that we see later. So this unit has a range score that starts at 0 at the start of the battle, at the end of each combat phase. So remember that it works for your and your opponent turns. If this unit is within 3 inches of any enemy units, increase its range score by 1 to a maximum of 3. at the end of each combat phase, if this unit is not within 3 inches of any enemy unit, then reset that rage. So it means that if you miss one, even once, you make the reset, so you come back to 0. When this unit has a rage score of 1 or more, add its rage score to the attack characteristic of these that are the rending bites and striking talons, so it can arrive to a maximum of 6. Not bad, because it's an improvement of the attacks that you can gain. And then we had the command ability that it's Alpha Roar. Once per battle, at the start of your combat phase, you can pick one friendly unit with this ability on the battlefield to unleash a feral roar. If you do so, increase the rage score of a friendly Agadon unit wholly within 18 inches of that unit by 1 to a maximum of 3. So it's good to improve the, like I say, the amount of attacks for that unit. Maybe suggest about the Agadon Lancers, because in that way you have more models that can benefit by such. But remember that it's also a way to make that, or you can gain from 0 to 1 immediately, so you can immediately have that at the end of that combat phase you have rage 2, so it's a way to improve the way. The real problem is that anyway it's once per battle, so you have to pay attention about such, because it means that you can have a limited amount of times that you can do such things, so you have to pay attention about when to do. Still, it's a model that I quite like, and it's quite amazing both for the rules and for the options about the things that you can gain. Because remember that you can have, for example, the Coalesced part that can make you have quite a lot of bonuses and so on. So it's really quite interesting, and I suggest you to take note about such one, because it's beautiful the model and the rules are not bad. And I have another unit that I'm falling in love with, that are the Agadon Lancers. These are the Saurus Knights that substitute the cold ones with the Agadon, and sincerely I'm quite happy about this, because I never liked the cool ones as they were, so I'm really quite glad. This it's a unit that it's not bad, because there are 3 models with these that are 5 wounds each and save for plus. About the weapons, we can find that they have the same attacks of number. The range is different, okay, but what it changed, it's the part about the hit roll and the rend. So it's up to you to decide which one you want, but still I maybe prefer the spear, because there are ways to improve and so on. But eventually it's up to you to decide what you prefer, because you can anyway suppress the rend and so on and make it better using the spells and so on. So it's up to you to decide how you want to play. The champion, it's making the add 1 to the attack characteristic, so quite nice. There is the standard build that this make that add 1 to the bravery. Sincerely, it's not something that I really think that it's so great, because okay, it comes to have a bravery 9 good, but it's not so useful. Then we had the musician that make that you can add 1 to the run and charge rolls. So sincerely, this is quite amazing, because it means to be able to reach better the opponent, more if you want to charge. So maybe that you want to relocate such unit and then try to charge. It's something that I suggest you to think about the option about the Starbones, for example, but also the collection can have quite a lot of usage about. Then we had what we have seen about with this for the Saurus Scar Veteran on Agrodon, that is the Primal Rage. So again, they can add attacks to this amount, and really this it's really quite useful. So eventually, if you plan about using the Agadon Lancers, I suggest you to think to add also one of the Scar Veteran on Agrodon, because it's quite useful both as hero but also as bonus for such unit. Remember that it's limited as amount of times that you can do, so that it's only once time, but this it's really an amazing one. This is still a unit that I prefer maybe to see it used in a Coalesced army, but I remember you that even in a Starborne can see quite a lot its own value, because there are quite a lot of combos that you can create. And I've had the Saurus Warriors that are the base of the Saurus. This is something that I quite appreciate, because it has 2 wounds, movement 5, save 4 plus, base save 4 plus, so really quite nice. Bravery 8, okay. It has 2 attacks, and sincerely here about the spear and the club, I think that it's up to you decide what you want, because if you include more models, maybe it's better the spear, because you have maybe a range more to have and to attack. Otherwise, if you go to play with 10 models, I suggest maybe to go for the club, because it's almost for sure that you'll be able to reach. Anyway, they're both interesting anyway. Then we had the champion that add 1 to the attack, as usually. We had the standard build that add 1 to the bravery, so bravery 9 if you need it. And then we had the musician that it's 1 every 10 model, as the standard build. Remember always to add all of them. And add 1 to the run and charge rolls for units that has these word drums. Sincerely, I always suggest you, as I said for the Agadons ones, to pay attention about how you want to play, because you can play this quite intently both for the Starborne that can relocate and make you charge, or for the Coalesce that can make you be quite fast about. So it's something that it's really interesting. And we have one thing that it's really nice, because we have ordered cohorts, so that add 1 to the save roll for attack that target this unit if it's contesting any objective or if it is wholly within your territory. So this it's really quite amazing, because these units are usually used to control objectives. So be able to make that it gain a save 3+. I think that it's not bad at all. It's really something that made them really quite worth. I used to play quite a lot of Saurus, about 80, 100. Now with the new ones, I think that maybe I play even more. Okay, no, but yeah, I think that anyway, it will be really quite interesting to play with such models. Then we have Saurus Jaws, so that each time this unit fights, after all of its attack has been restored, pick one enemy unit within 1 inch of the unit and roll a die for each model in this unit within 1 inch of this unit. Remember that it's like having the normal attacks. These dice rolls are referred as bite rolls. For each bite of 6+, the enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound. And remember that with the Coalesced, this goes to 5+. So it's a way to make this unit quite dangerous for the opponent, because it has the both the attacks that are not bad, and eventually also the mortal wounds. So it's really something that it's to look for, because you can really improve a lot, and you have also the ways to improve even more how you want to make the more attacks, more rend, and so on about such type of units. And so this is one of the basic units that I suggest to think about. And then we had the Saurus Guard. These are the few Saurus that has not seen a new model, and sincerely they maybe needed it. I think that I'll make some change about some Bloodborne models to make these ones eventually to personalize. And about the profile, anyway, are a sort of Saurus Warriors but improved, because they have always 3+ as saving, 2 wounds, movement of 5 and bravery 8. As you see, the profile of the attacks, it's like a combination of the lance, the spear, and the club together. So it's anyway quite nice. The champion has 1 more attack. The standard is always 1 added to the bravery. And the musician +1 to the charge and run. As usual, think about the option about redeploy and charge. Then you have Selfless Protector, that it's the main role about such unit. So before you allocate a wound or a mortal wound to a friendly Seraphon hero that is not a monster, so it means that it's both for Skinks, Saurus, and the everything else that you need, but not a monster. So the ones that has the keyword monster you can't apply even if that's the hero, instead of making a wound or mortal wound as usually. So if this unit is within 3 inch of that friendly Seraphon hero, you can roll a dice on a 1-2 that wound or mortal wound is allocated to that Seraphon hero. On a 3+, that mortal wound or wound is allocated to this unit instead. So they are the bodyguards. And it's okay, sincerely, I don't like that it's within 3 inch, so they have to be really quite close. But at the same time, it's something that it's worth if you need to protect maybe some your gen. Think about using, for example, a Slann or a Skink that you want to serve in a lot of ways, and more to preserve it from the opponent can be a good choices about. They've had the Saurus Jaws that we have seen before about the Saurus Warriors. So again, on a 6+, if they are within 1 inch after all the attacks are done by this unit, you can roll, and on a 6+ you make 1 mortal wound. Remember, Coalesced 5+. So this unit is something that it's okay. Sincerely, I would have hoped maybe something better, I don't know, maybe 1 damage more, something better to say. Still, it's a real bodyguard, so if you need a bodyguard, this unit is perfect, and I suggest you eventually to think about, not about monsters. If you go to play about the monsters and you need the bodyguard, this is not a unit, obviously. Still, it's a unit that I'll give a try. I continue to prefer the Saurus Warriors, but these are not bad at all. And I had the Skink Starseer. This it's quite an interesting unit, because it's a wizard that can cast 2 spells in your hero phase and unbind 2 spells in the enemy hero phase. So, a less version of the Slann, but it's quite useful. So we have that has 6 wound and save for plus, so it's not so bad in resilience. Then we have that the combat, it's not its best, but anyway, it can make some damages. It has fly, because it has the amount of the throne eventually. It has scry the stars, so once per battle in your hero phase you can say that the unit will scry the stars. If you do so, roll a number of dice equal to the number of the current battle round. For each 2+, you can pick 1 friendly Seraphon unit on the battlefield. That unit has a ward of 5+ until the start of your next hero phase. This is quite nice if you think that you can have units that move quite far on the battlefield, or you can teleport them. So it means that this it's a way to reach them even if your Astrolith Bearer it's not close, and it's a way to save also the cosmic power points. For example, if you have even the Star Bearers, because it's only once per battle, but for each of these, so you can make use of this, then use another one, for example, and so have cover 2 battle rounds eventually. But you have also to remember that there is one problem. It's work only once, and you can't control really how many are the units that will gain such one. So I suggest anyway to use this type of abilities the 2nd, 3rd, maximum 4th battle round eventually. But it's anyway nice, and so this it's quite protecting and quite worth. Moreover, remember that it's a mage. And then have the Celestial Doom, that it's the specific spell that has a casting value of 7 and a range of 12 inch. Here you'd need an Astrolith Bearer to make improve the range at least of such spell. It's actually cast, pick 1 enemy unit within range visible to the caster. Until the end of your turn, ward draws cannot be made for models in that unit. That is not bad at all, because there are a lot of units, for example the Undead, that has wards, and forbid them to use them. It's quite a good way to make them suffer even more wounds and so on. And think about damaging quite so on, and the opponent unit has ward. Negating them, it's not bad, so it has quite a lot of value, and so I suggest you eventually to think about including, because it could be a good way to improve your way of resilience, offensive, and also the buffing of the opponent, so quite nice. And I've had the Skink Star Priest. This that can be seen as a minor skink hero can be quite interesting, because it has, first of all, 5 wounds and save 5+, so not bad. We had the profile of attacks that it's really survivor at least. We had that is a wizard that can cast 1 spell in your hero phase and combine 1 spell in the enemy hero phase, and we see that maybe you'll always use for its own spell. Then we had that has Serpent Staff, and this is the reason why you should almost choose 2 of them. So really, this it seems that the heroes go on a couple about the Seraphon, because in your hero phase you can pick 1 friendly Seraphon unit within 12 inch of this unit, so quite small the range. If you do so until your next hero phase, if the modified wound roll for an attack made by that unit is 6, that attack causes 1 mortal wound to the target in addition to any damage it inflicts. Really, this is quite amazing. It makes even the Skinks being able to be quite lethal, because the Skinks have also the shooting ones, and this took only about attacks, not melee ones, so it's both for shooting and the normal ones, and it works on all the attacks that has the keyword Seraphon, so nice, really nice. Then had that there is Blasting Starlight, that is the spell that has a casting value of 6 and a range of 18 inch. It's actually cast, pick 1 enemy unit within range and visible to the caster until your next hero phase, subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made by that unit. So not bad at all, really, because giving a malus to the hit roll, it's not bad at all. So this unit, it's something that you can really think about having a cardboard, because being able to target 2 different units to be able to gain the bonus for your Seraphon unit that can go in combat and so on can be really quite awesome. And so that can be Skinks, can be Saurus, can be Agrodon and so on, or can be heroes. So really quite interesting, this one. And the spell, it's a malus that it's also good to support. So it's a you decide how make it work. You can eventually create a combination so that much you can make different options on. So this it's something that I'd really suggest you to think about having included in your army, because you have a lot to choose, but such bonuses are quite amazing. They've had the Skin Oracle on Troglodon. This is a model that I love, and if you want, in my playlist about the Seraphon, I made you see also about I monetize it, so that you can convert this monetizing from the Troglodon to a Carnosaurus eventually, but I love such model. And it's nice also as profile, because anyway it has 14 wounds at 4+ as save. The bravery is quite small, but you can have a lot of options about improving this eventually. The damage table is quite solid, so at least can gain quite a lot, and the amount of attacks are not bad, and they are not the best, but they are not bad. Then we have the abilities, so that is a wizard, so you can cast one spell in your own hero phase and unbind one spell in the enemy hero phase. Then there is the regeneration, so at the start of the hero phase you can heal up the 3 wounds in this turn, and remember that you can have the option about an artifact that improves of another D3 eventually. We have Stench of Death, so that start at 1 from hit rolls for attacks made by enemy units within 9 inch of any friend units with this ability. This works for both shooting and close combat, but remember that there is also a monster rampage that you can have with the Coalesced that can make this range being 12 inch, and so having quite a lot of impact against the enemy unit in close combat with also other units. So it's not bad at all. It has terror that it's we've seen also for the Carnosaurus eventually. So enemy unit can receive the Inspiring Presence command while they are within 3 inch of any friendly units with this ability. So it's quite nice. So you can damage and be sure that the enemy can't try to save in other ways. So we have Venomous Beetle, that is the missile weapon, that if the modified hit roll for an attack made with this unit, Nauseous Spirit or Venom's Jaws, is 6. That attack causes a number of mortal wounds to the target equal to the wounds damage characteristic and the attack sequence end. So it's really quite interesting, because it means that works for both the missile weapons and the melee weapon. And there are quite a nice amount of mortal wounds that they can inflict. We have Primordial Mire, that it's a spell that has a casting value of 7 and the range 12 inch. Again, if you want to improve the Astrality Pillar about the range, it's actually cast, pick one objective terrain or terrain feature within range and visible to the caster. Until your next hero phase, unit within 3 inch of that objective or terrain feature cannot run or retreat and must halve the result of any charge rolls. And this spell has not effect on Skinks units and units that can fly, but remember that if you have Saurus once, it works on them, even if they are your allies, so you have to pay attention. Still, this it's something that I quite like a lot, and there are a lot of ways to play with. Sicily, you have to pay a bit of attention. It's not something that can make a lot of damage by itself, but it's a great support, so eventually I suggest you to think about give a try about this. Then had the Skinks, that are another one of the main battle lines about the Seraphon, and here we have a quite interesting profile, because it has movement of 8 inch, 5 bravery, but it can be improved, 1 wounds and save 5+, but it depends the save based on how you want to armor and make these weapons on, because you can make that it has the shield, so it can bring the save on 5+. The only way technically to forget about the shield is if you arm this with the Bone Split and the Moonstone Club, but this it's a unit that perfectly combine with the Skink Star Priest that can make quite a lot of mortal wounds eventually. So if you are playing eventually, the Bone Split and the Moonstone Club could be a good choice eventually, but it's up to you decide how you want to prepare, because that has quite a lot of different ways, and anyway it's still fragile, so remember about such. But remember that it has also good combination with the Croxigor inventory. So we have the champion that add 1 to these attacks, and then we have Swift and Nimble that each time this unit runs or receive a deploy command when determining the distance this unit can move, you can roll 2 dice instead of 1 and pick either result. So it's a way to make it much better about running or redeploy literally. So there are quite a lot of options that you can gain from this. This it's a perfect unit to, I can say, make noise on the enemy, so ambush, try to make a hit and run and so on. So this it's one of the units that it's perfect combined or perfect to run around trying to be not catched by the enemy. So it's up to you decide what you want and what you'd like about such unit, but it has a lot of potential. And remember that it's cheaper, and this is one of the main features about such unit. And I've had the spawn of Chotek, that it's the evolution, we can call it like this, of the Salamander. This it's something that it's quite good because it has 8 wounds on a save 4+, movement 5 inch. It has 2 different profiles about the shooting that are about the same weapon, but it's something that it's quite interesting because you have to choose which one you obviously try to shoot, and the stream of fire, that is the second one, that has, as you can see, a small range, only 12 inch, but it hit quite easily, not so much the wound, but okay, anyway it's 2-land. And then you make that the attack characteristic of the stream of fire is equal to the number of models the target unit to a maximum of 10. So it can be really quite intriguing, such one, and you can make quite a lot of options eventually. And then you have the Globe of Flame Acid, so that if any wound goes by this attack, by this one, that it's a single attack, remember, it made that start at 1 from the save roll for the attacks that target that unit until the end of the turn. So the same unit cannot be affected by the ability more than once per turn. So it means that even if you have 2 or more of such spawn of Chotek, you can't make the unit almost forget about its saving, but okay. So here it's up to you decide what you want to do. Anyway, it's something that it's quite good also in close combat, because anyway it has a good profile, not something that I suggest, but it can at least defend itself. So it's a unit that it's quite nice. I love it as a model because it's new and it's perfect, and together it's also something that it's quite interesting to combine with other options about the Seraphon, and so find different combination available. And then I put together the Raptor Hunters and the Raptor Chargers, because they have quite a lot the same profile, because they have both 2 wounds, save 5+, movement at 12, bravery 6. As you can see, the profile about the weapons are almost the same, but the Hunters has the missile weapons, instead the Chargers are a little more about the combat. What is interesting is about the champion, as usually, add 1 to the attacks. The standard bearer add 1 to the bravery, and in this case it's quite important because they have bravery 5, so they come to 6. And the musician that make them run and charge having a +1 to the roll, so not bad. And if you go to see, these units are interlaced to each other, so this improve this and the charges improve the hunters, so much that we have deadly cohesion. So at the end of your charge phase, if this unit is more than 3 inch from all enemy unit and within 12 inch of any friendly charger unit that made a charge move in that phase, this unit can shoot. If it does, it must target a unit within 3 inch of a friendly trapdown charges, so this other unit that made a charge move in that phase. Here, I suppose that it's a little about anyway being in the range of the 12 from that enemy unit, but it's something that I think that it could be quite interesting be fact. Instead, the charger, Lapdon charges, has 2 abilities, so we had that add 1 to the hit rolls for attacks made with these type of classes that target an enemy unit. That unit was the target of a shooting attacks made by a friendly Raptor Hunters unit in the same turn. Remember that, so that if this charge, these ones can shoot, and if this shoot, this one gain a bonus to the hit roll. Moreover, it has this that make that the damage characteristic of this unit type of class is 2 instead of 1 if this unit is contesting an objective or it is within of any Terran feature with a Dark Arm mystery rule. And remember that these units are battle line if they are in an army of the Funks of Sotek. So anyway, they can be even contesting purely without having the problem about the battle line, also the preferences, so they can gain quite a lot about such ones. Sincerely, I love such models, they are amazing, but you have to understand if they are worth or not, because they are quite fragile, but they can do quite a lot of damages at the same time. So these are some type of unit that you are really to think how you want to, I can really say, use in the better way that you can think about. So discover the bonuses that they can gain from the army. Then I try to get again such units, because they are technically the same unit with different weaponry, and are the Hunters of Guanchi, that are the old Skinks chameleons, simply with different weaponry, as you can see. So they have the same profile technically. The ones here are having more about the shooting. These ones are more related about the close combat. The Hunter Javelins, it's something that it's only one every 5 models, so remember about this. So we go to see about the abilities that are in common and the single one that is different. So they both have Chameleon Ambush, so during the deployment you can put this unit on the server. If you do so, at the end of your movement phase, you can set up this unit on the battlefield more than 9 inch from all enemy units. So about this you can still shoot in at least, instead about here it's quite problematic because it's 8 inch and you have to be more than 9 inch, so you have to pay attention. Eventually with the Starborne there is an option, but you have to remember that you have to use that. And if this unit is on the battlefield at the end of your movement phase, you can remove it from the battlefield and see that it's hiding as a reserve unit. If you do so, at the end of any of your subsequent movement phase, you can set up this unit on the battlefield more than an inch from all enemy units. So it's a nice way, because technically this can make the appear, disappear, appear, disappear, that it's perfect to, for example, be able to conquer the objects that are left there by the opponent, because you can simply hide such unit or make it compare where you need, so that you lose one turn, but at the same time you can move everywhere on the battlefield with the right suggestion. So any reserve unit is hiding and that are not set up on the battlefield before the start of the 4th battle round are destroyed. So remember about such, because it make a limit about the amount of time that you can play with such trick. So perfect mimicry, the unit is not visible to any unit that are more than 12 inch from this while it is in cover. So this is quite interesting, because it's a way to make them really immune, not immune, but anyway, really preventing a lot of shooting and so on. So it's really quite nice. And I had the difference between the two, as you can see, because the other ones are the same. So we have Starborne Bolas that are related about the weaponry here, that make that if the modified roll for an attack made with this Starborne Bolas is 6, the target is stunned until the end of the following combat phase. Start at 1 from the hit rolls for attacks made by a unit that is stunned. So not bad at all. And remember that this is attacks, so it works for both melee and shooting eventually. Instead here we have this that it's Star Venom, so if the modified hit roll for an attack made with the Dark Pipe is 6, the target suffers 1 mortal wound and the attack sequence ends. So these are perfect to be around by themselves, appear, disappear, move around, making mortal wounds. So it's not bad at all, and you really have to think how you want to need, because they both have their own quite interesting options. Sincerely, it's better about, in my opinion, this one, because it has more range, so it can use to the maximum their own abilities. At the same time, this one has also their own nice things, because they can approach the enemy, use the bolas, and so give to more units such effect. So I think that it could be interesting, different ways, but interesting. And I've had the Terra Wigs. Sincerely, this it's a unit that I don't like so much. It has all related about its specific abilities, so it's good, but I don't find it so useful, maybe because I'm playing the Undead, so it's not useful against them. So that it has 2 wounds, save 6+, but movement of 12 inch. It has the combat that it's not so bad, but it's not so good. Obviously, it can fly. It has that in the shooting phase, you can pick one enemy unit within 12 inch of this unit and roll 2d6. If the roll is higher than the unit bravery characteristic, that enemy unit cannot use or receive commands until the end of the turn. good, amazing ones, but with many parts of the units having an 8 and 9 of bravery, it's not so useful. Okay, Demons and Undead has 10, okay. So we have this, that it's symbiotic relationship, so during the deployment, instead of setting up this unit on the battlefield, if you have any Hunters of Wanchi unit that we have seen before in reserve, you can place this unit to one side and say that it's hiding as a reserve unit. If you do so, at the end of your unit phase, you can set up this unit on the battlefield within 3 inches of any friendly Hunters of Wanchi unit and more than an inch from all enemy units. So you can understand that it's perfect in combination with this, that its ability, because it's 12 inch. So technically you can compare the Hunter of Wanchi, make this compare with that unit and try to use this ability. Still, I don't so think that it's quite good. Maybe to try something related, but it's not one of the units that I'm going crazy to try, even if they are new models. And I've had the Battletome. This it's a model that I like, and if you're interested in the playlist about the Seraphon, you can find my monetizing so that you can choose about the Soul Engine or the Arcosotic. This is a model that has 12 wounds and a save of 2+, movement 5 inch. As you can see, the Soul Engine it's about the shooting, and the Arcosotic it's about the combat. So it's quite to choose, and the Arcosotic has an ability so that if the modified hit roll for an attack made with the Arcosotic is 6, the target suffers 1 mortal wound and the attack sequence ends. So you can do quite a lot of damage in close combat. The problem is what we'll choose, because they are really too different, and it's not so great both of them, because okay, you can do a lot, but not so much at the same time. So I'm quite not so sure. And it has 2 as save, but sincerely I prefer before when it was that it was not modifiable such save. Instead here it is. So it's something that you have really to think about if you need and what combination you need, because it can bring you quite a lot of attacks, because anyway the Arcosotic can be quite intriguing, or you can have about the shooting, because anyway the Soul Engine it's not something that to do quite few damages, but at the same time it's not so sure to make damages. So it's something that you are really to think what you prefer. It's nice, but not nice as before. Then I treat together the Pterodon Riders and the Pterodon Shift, because the main abilities are the same, so I repeat only once. So we can find about the Pterodon Rider that has 3 wounds, save 6+, movement 16 inch, and it will be quite useful. We can find about the missile weapons, and sincerely I'd always go about the javelins, because better range and the rend. Then we had the Deadly Cargo that once per battle, remember once per battle, after this unit finish a normal move or run, you can pick one enemy unit and roll a dice for each mod in this unit that pass across enemy models in that enemy unit. For each 4+, that enemy unit suffer D3 mortal wounds. In addition, if any mortal wounds caused by this ability are allocated to that enemy unit, halve the move characteristic of that enemy unit until your next hero phase. Quite interesting this one, but you have to remember that it's once per battle, so there are advantages about having a bigger unit of these Pterodon Riders, but there are also better ones having small units but having more units about them. So we have also attack from on high. So start that one from hit rolls for attacks made with missile weapons that target this unit. So it's not predatory if you think, because it means that you are always in some way protected and you have malus to the opponent if they target this. So quite welcome. And then we had the Pterodon Shift that obviously has more wounds than the Pterodon Riders, so we have 6 wounds. We had the combat profile that it's not so bad, a pity that there are not any of the missile weapons. We had the Deadly Cargo that we've seen before, the attack from on high too, so again it's nice. And then we have coordinated attack, so that once per battle, again, at the start of your movement phase, you can pick one friend unit with this ability on the battlefield to call a Pterodon attack. If you do so until the end of that phase, each time a friendly Pterodon unit wholly within 12 inches of that unit uses this Deadly Cargo ability, the enemy unit suffers D3 mortal wounds for each 2+ instead of each 4+. So much better, because improve quite a lot the amount of the Deadly Cargo one, but at the same time you have to remember that it's limited to the Pterodon Shifts, and moreover it's limited about which unit, because if you think about the Pterodon Riders are better used units that are small ones to do. Instead, if you use a Pterodon shift, you should technically, to make this to the maximum option, you should have a bigger unit of the Pterodon riders. So you have to decide how to make. Okay, technically, if you are close, you could make that. You can do for both, for more than one unit. At the same time, but anyway, it's not so useful. So you have to pay attention about how to use them. As I done about the Pterodon, also about the Reaper Dati, I'll treat them together, the riders and the shift, because they have the same abilities. And about this, I want to remind you that in the description I'll leave you the Seraphon playlist, where you can find also my conversion about the Reaper Dati riders and Pterodon, so that you can monetize them and switch from one to the other one as you prefer, so it can be useful. So we can see about the Reaper Dati riders that has 3 wounds, save 5+, movement 12 inch. It's not so good but not bad in close combat. And now we can see about the abilities that has Blood Toad. So you receive 1 Blood Toad for market for each Reaper Dati riders unit in the army. So more units, better it is, more you have about the Blood Toad. After the player has received their starting command points, but before the start of the first turn, you can pick 1 enemy unit to have a Blood Toad for each Blood Toad marker you have. Place a Blood Toad marker next to that enemy unit. Remember that the Blood Toad, these ones, are not units, they are marks that are used to keep track of which enemy units has the Blood Toad. Here I'm quite curious if they last all the battle, but technically yes, and okay. I'm quite curious sincerely about this one, because it doesn't talk about the battle rounds, but first turn and second turn, so in the battle round. And so I'm really quite curious to see about, but I think that anyway it's something that once decided you not change. So we have to add rage, so that in the combat phase add 1 to hit rolls and wound rolls for attacks made with the unit, these ones, the second one of the Reaper Dati themselves, that target the enemy unit that has a Blood Toad, so not bad. And then we have Snooping Dive that start at 1 from hit roll for attacks made with missile weapon that target this unit, and more than the one that we have seen about the Pterodon. In addition, if this unit is targeted by an attack by the enemy unit that received an Unleash Hell command in that phase, this attack only score a hit on a modified hit roll of 6. So not bad at all, it's quite defensive, this one. They had the shift that obviously has more wounds, so it has 6 wounds. The profile it's almost the same, as you can see, it's 1 more attack than the Skyblade, but it's technically champion. They had, as you can see, the Blood Toad, the Toad Rage, the Sweeping Dive, and I had the special ability that it's once per battle, only once, at the start of your combat phase. You can pick 1 friend unit with this ability on the battlefield to call a Reaper Dati Assault. If you do so until the end of that phase, add 1 to the attack characteristic of melee weapons used by friendly Reaper Dati unit while there are only within 12 inch of that unit. So quite nice if you have more and more units about the Reaper Datis near this. But sincerely, I don't find it so good, because okay, 1 more attack and so on, but the Reaper Dati riders I could think about playing. The Reaper Dati shift, sincerely I don't find it so useful, because anyway it's only once per battle and only in your combat phase, so it's quite limiting about. Still, I think that they have quite a lot of potential. It would be nice to have a characterized army, on a personalized army on your battlefield to play with, eventually with such units. And then I go to treat together these 3 units, because they are based on the Stegodon, all 3, so they have a lot of abilities and things in common. So the Stegodon Shift, the Stegodon, and the Engine of the Gods. We go to see about the common things and the differences. About the common things, taking the Stegodon, we can find that all of them has the 14 wounds and 4+ save. The weaponry about the Stegodon is the same as the damage table. We can find that the Armored Crest at the start of the combat phase, you can pick 1 enemy unit within 3 inch of this unit that has up to 5 models. If you do so, until the end of that phase, add 1 to the save rolls for attacks made by that unit that target this unit. So it's quite limited, but not bad. Then there is the Steadfast Majesty, so add 3 to the bravery characteristic of friendly Skinks unit that does not have the keyword Stegodon, that are wholly within 12 inch of any friend unit with this ability. Quite nice. It's a way to improve the bravery of the Skinks. We have also Unstoppable Stampede, so after the unit finishes a charge move, roll a dice for each enemy unit within 1 inch of this unit. On a 2+, that enemy unit suffers D3 mortal wounds, and this is something more in addition of what we see about the Monstrous Rampage, remember. Then we have something that is common for both the Stegodon Sheath and the Stegodon, so that is the Sunfire Flowers. So do not do the attack sequence for an attack made with the Sunfire Flowers. Instead, roll a number of dice equal to the number of mods in the target unit that are within range of the attack. For each 5+, the target suffers 1 mortal wound. And the specific one about the Stegodon, it's the Skink War Party, so this unit counts as 10 mods for the purposes of the contesting objectives. So it's really not bad, this one, and it's really quite full of interesting things. You can find about the Stegodon Sheath, that as you can see has the Armored Crest as the other one. We can find the Steadfast Majesty and the Unstoppable Stampede and the Sunfire Flowers that in common with the Stegodon. And about the specific one, it's the Coordinated Strike. So once per turn, this unit can use a command to a friendly skink unit without a command point be spent. So once per turn, so yours and your opponent. Obviously, it has also a different part about the shooting, because here we had that there is also the Waspire eventually about the mods that there is the sheath. So it's really quite interesting. If we compare all the things, we can find that it's almost the same for everything other than the part about the skink themselves, so that you can see it's having the parts. So it's up to you to decide if you prefer one or the other ones, but quite nice. Instead, about the engine of the gods, here we can find that we have quite a lot of differences, because we have again the part about here the Steadfast Majesty, the Unstoppable Stampede and the Armored Crest. But what has been changed, it's the part about the Cosmic Engine, that it's the main reason about such mod. So in your shooting phase, you can say that this unit will ever harness the reserve of the power of this Cosmic Engine. If you say so, that will harness the power score by rolling 2d6. If you say that it will be reserve the power, nothing happens, but you can roll 1 additional dice the next time this unit harness the power of this Cosmic Engine. It's to note that a unit can receive the power of its Cosmic Engine multiple times before it try to harness it. For example, if a unit try receive the power of this Cosmic Engine in 2 of your shooting phases consecutively, when it next harness the power, it will be making the Cosmic Engine roll 2 additional dice when generating the power for a total of 4d6. So remember about such. And here are the things that you can generate. So Healing Light. On a power score of 2-6, nothing happens. On a power score of 7+, heal D3 wounds allocated to each friendly Seraphon unit wholly within 6 inches of this unit. Roll separately for each unit. Remember that you can't make comeback mods, only heal. Then we have Bolts of Azure Energy. On a power score of 2-8, this unit suffers 1 mortal wound. On a power score of 9+, pick 1 enemy unit within 24 inches of this unit and visible to it, and roll a number of dice equal to the power score. For each 4+, that enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound. Not bad at the end, because it means that more you can accumulate, more eventually damage you can do. Then have Time Slows. On a power score of 10 to 10, then this unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. On a power score of 11+, until the end of the turn, the strike first effect applied to friendly Seraphon unit wholly within 6 inches of this unit. Sincerely, wholly within, it's not too much. It's this unit and quite a few ones again. And then we have Starlight Summons, that on a power score of 2 to 12, this unit suffers 3 mortal wounds. On a power score of 13+, so scavenging around, you can summon 1 Saurus Warrior unit of 10 mods or 1 Skink Horde unit of 20 mods to the battlefield and add it to your army. The summon unit must be set up wholly within 6 inches of this unit and more than an inch from all enemy units. Remember that to apply such result, you have at least to save for 1 turn and pray, because double 6 is 12. So you need quite a lot of high result eventually. So it's something that you can do in the second, third turn, better third turn to try to summon. So you don't do this quite often, but it's nice to add something that it's a battle line. So it's anyway quite good. This to show that you have different combination available, and it's up to you decide which one you want and which one you prefer to play with. Eventually also you can make a monster one, because you can eventually find ways to have fun and having a lot of skinks and so on, and create an army based on the monsters and the skinks. It's anyway quite nice. Also, because you don't have to forget that the Stegadon in a Coalesced Thunder Lizard army, it's battle line. So technically you can really create an army of only monsters eventually. And then had the Realm Shaper engine. Here they decided to separate such cause, but sincerely it's only a single ability that is different. So we can find the commons, so that it's a faction Terran, that it's based one. Remember that I made the videos also about monetize such one, so that it can be interesting. We had the setup, so after the territories are determined, you can set up this faction Terran feature wholly within your territory and more than 3 inches from all objectives and Terran features. Remember also objectives. If there is a restriction prevent you from setting up this Terran feature, you can remove one Terran feature that is wholly or partially within your territory and attempt to set up this faction Terran feature again. If it is still impossible to set up this Terran feature, it is not used, so you have to pay attention. If both players can set up Terran feature at the same time, you must roll off and the winner choose who set up their faction Terran feature first. So pay attention, because this is smaller technically as area than the nexus of the Hostile Bush Shaper. But you have to pay attention also about the, for example, Sublet Gravers grave site that could be problems. Then we have impossible. You cannot move a model over this Terran feature unless it can fly, and you cannot move a model onto this Terran feature or set up a model on this Terran feature even if it can fly. But what changed between the two is this, that for the Starborne Realm Shaper one is that in your hero phase, if there are friendly Seraphon wizard within 3 inches of this Terran feature, you can pick one other Terran feature on the battlefield and roll a dice for each enemy unit within 3 inches of that Terran feature. Add 2 to the roll, or if that Terran feature is within 18 inches of this Terran feature, and subtract 2 from the roll if that Terran feature is more than 36 inches from this Terran feature. On a 4+, that enemy unit suffer D3 mortal wound. So it's quite easy about being within 3 inches and add such option eventually, so it can be interesting. Instead about the Coalesced, we had this, that technically it's better than this one about the Starborne, but it's more difficult to realize, because add 1 to the bite rolls made for Coalesced Saurus and Coalesced Crocs unit. Remember that you have yet gained a bonus, so you gain a 5+, and now you have a 4+ with this. So Saurus Jaws and this like Jaws ability, if there are wholly within 12 inches of this Terran feature, so you have to make it quite deep and not quite close to your edge, but quite deep in the battlefield if you want to use this at least in some way. In addition, use the top row of the damage tables of friendly Coalesced monster if there are wholly within 12 inches of this Terran feature, regardless of how many wounds that unit has suffered. This is amazing, really amazing. The problem is that wholly within, that it's not so great as range. If it would be within, maybe there are some ways, but so it's not so easy. At least it's nice to create a sort of defensive eventually, so it has its own option, but the range it's not anyway so great, so you have to pay a bit of attention about. So this anyway free once, so I suggest you to deploy it, obviously if you have the option about the deployment setup. But you can gain quite a lot, so if before you can think that useless, think that anyway it's free. It's a free bonus to your options, so it's always better to have that doesn't have. About the points, I want to remind you that you can find them on the Warhammer app of Age of Sigmar as the scrolls, and they can be changed along the time, so it's not something that you must be obsessed about. They are useful for sure, but you have to pay attention more about the combination that you want to realize. So we can remember that these having the Stegadon that are battle line if it's in a Thunder Lizard army, Coalesced. The Agadon Lancers can be a battle line if the general is a Saurus, in this both, so for the Starborne and the Coalesced army. The Croxigore and the Croxigore Spawn become a battle line in a Crossclaw army. So it's really quite interesting. I remember that the Raptor Chargers and the Raptor Hunters are battle line in a Fangosotec army. So you can have quite a lot of options available. Remember that you had the Alistar Cities of Sigmar and the Stormcast Titans. But more than anything, remember that they cost quite few, but you risk to invest quite a lot of points in different units. So you have to decide which ones are the things that you are interested about, because you can create an army based on the Saurus, based on the Skinks, based on the monsters. So you can create a lot of different things. What it must pay attention, it's simply what you want to have, the concept of the army that you want to gain, and this it will be your main. Then it's simply about testing, play, and having fun. So, from Dino Mode, it's everything. I invite you to put a like on this video, to subscribe to the channel, to ring the bell, and to comment this video if you are interested in something about this video or you want to suggest me some arguments for other videos. I hope to see you again to the next time.